Hi, this is Hannah Rubenstahl. I am starting off my 10 cards from the Chocolate Lovers Card Kit by Kat Scrappiness video blog post. Kat created a really fabulous Chocolate Lovers Card Kit that will allow you to make a minimum of 10 cards. So we were challenged, her design team, to create 10 cards from our box, video it, and share it with you guys. And so what you're seeing now is the start of that. Here I have the paper pad by Pebbles that came in the card kit. And I flipped through choosing the paper that I wanted to use. At this point in time, I have no idea what I'm going to do with the card. You saw me earlier use the wonky wavy stitched heart dies. I had die cut some scratch paper out of it. This is an add-on to the card kit that you can get. You can purchase it separately. I had die cut it and I was playing around with it and the Chocolate Lover sentiment stamp to see if I could fit any in it. I was still trying to figure out what I was going to do with the card. And now I am moving on. The sweet die that you see here, it does come in the card kit. You have to purchase the kit in order to get the really lovely sweet die. And I am playing with the doily in the ephemera, also from Pebbles, that matches the paper pad to create this lovely card. Now, I have die cut the word sweet out of the light blue cardstock that came in the kit. And I am now cutting down that striped piece of paper to an A2 sized card size. So it'll be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I decided I wanted to do something with the edges of this paper. I really feel like a card is finished when some treatment happens to the edges. So I'm taking some Distress Oxide in picked raspberry and a finger dauber, and I am just running it around the edge of the card. And I am taking some abandoned coral Distress Oxide and running that along the edges as well. Now that I've cleaned off my workspace, I am trying to figure out where I'm going to place everything. I am going to take some Delicata gold ink with a finger dauber, a sponge dauber, and I'm going to dust the gold all around that doily in order to give it a little bit of shimmer. To make the sentiment sweet pop, I decided to cover my sentiment in Versamark watermark ink and then submerge it in Wow clear embossing powder. Initially, I tried to keep my fingers neat and clean by using my paper piercer to smush the sentiment into the ink pad. However, I wasn't getting even coverage, so I bit the bullet and I stuck my fingers in there and got it nice and covered. I think the result was really worth it. Once I had all of the elements of my card finished, I took a card base made out of Nina Solar White cardstock, 110 pound, and I covered it with my favorite tape runner, and I started adhering the elements to my card in the positions that I had previously decided upon. I did use a little Ranger Multi-Matte Medium to help adhere the edges of the doily down where I didn't want to stretch the tape runner through because I didn't want any adhesive to show through any of the little fine holes. To finish it off, I used some of the mint enamel drops by Fabrica Decoro that were also included in the kit and are also available to purchase separately on Kat Scrappiness if you are interested in them. For my second card, I went through the pattern paper and I found this X's and O's with hearts pattern paper that I super love. Let me just tell you, it's the blue and the hearts that I super love in this. And I played with some of the ephemera from the die kit pack that came with the card kit. It is also this matching the paper And I played around and found some stuff that I wanted to use with it. I took some of the cardstock, the colored cardstock, and I cut it down to an A2 sized piece of paper. So that'll be 4¼ by 5½. And then I took that pattern paper and I cut it down. And now I'm going to play with a couple of different sizes to figure out what it is that I want to use. For the next part of the card, I didn't exactly know where I wanted to take it. I knew that I wanted to utilize gold twine, but I wasn't too sure what steps I was going to take immediately. This is me crafting on the fly, trying to figure out things out with a vague idea of what I want to do, but no exact idea. So you see, I reach for my tape dispenser back and forth, trying to figure it out. Ultimately, I realize, I want to wrap the twine around the main panel of my card. So I take the gold twine out, which is super shimmery and sparkly. It is lovely. And I trimmed it about the length of an A2 card, which you might think is silly because you can just wrap over and over and over again. But I didn't want to use the whole width of the twine. The twine is it's twine width. It's relatively thickish. I wanted really thin strips of gold. So I separated all the various strands of the twine, and that was made a lot easier because I had trimmed it to length to what I wanted. So after my twine was trimmed and separated, I then took my pattern paper and I adhered it to the main panel, that coral colored panel of cardstock. And this gave me the gauge of where I wanted to adhere that twine. So using some really strong adhesive tape, I used score tape, which Kat carries a bunch of in her shop. I just taped the top and the bottom of that panel, just where the twine was going to be coming in. This way I could just wrap just a little bit. And then as soon as that was done, I used my adhesive runner and I ran it all over that panel so I could adhere it to my card base, which you saw me earlier folding and considering about using. The remaining bits of the card crafting went together fairly easily. I already sort of knew where I wanted things to go. So using my tape runner, I applied some adhesive to the die cut heart and stuck that on my card panel where I wanted it to go. I wanted the bicycle die cut to pop off the card front a little bit. I like a little height, a little dimension in my cards. So using some score tape, I adhered that to my fun foam and then score tape again to adhere the fun foam to my card panel. And then I used some Ranger Multimedia Matte to adhere the veneer wood hearts to my card. And voila, this was a really simple card to put together. It was simple, but very charming, I think, and a lot of fun. So unfortunately, in the process of creating and recording the process of all of these cards, some of the video files were corrupt and I lost all of the information and I cannot share with you all of the processes for all of the cards. And that includes the very beginning of this card. The file prior to this one was corrupted. And that is one of the reasons why you're not seeing the creation of all 12 cards that I made. So I will catch you up with what you have missed out on this card. I chose a piece of pattern paper that was included in the kit. I cut it down to an A2 size, which was 5¼ by 4½, and some coral cardstock that was included in the kit. And then I die cut 3 hearts out of it using the wonky wavy die, heart die, the smallest one. I wanted to allow plenty of space in between because I wanted to make each little heart its own little shaker window. Using some scrap fun foam, I don't throw anything away. Using some scrap fun foam, I started to adhere all of the various parts of the frame for the shaker window. And then I realized that I forgot the acetate on it. I forget this all the time. You would think I would learn. Fortunately, all was not lost. I was able to peel everything up relatively easily and glued down my acetate, replaced all of that fun foam. I took some cracked pistachio distressed oxide and I dusted the outside of that pattern paper and then adhered that to my card base. Taking that heart die cut bit, I rubbed my embossing buddy over the acetate to help remove any static electricity. And then I took the sequin pack Hearts of Plenty that was included in the card kit and I poured a small amount in each little shaker window bit. And then I placed some score tape along the fun foam. Now this is where I messed up on my card. Well, okay, as if I haven't already messed up. This is where I messed up again. I had intended that window to be on the right-hand side of my card, and I accidentally stuck it on the left-hand side of the card. All I can say is everything was neat and clean, and everything lined up perfectly. It's just on the wrong side. Only you and I know that. I think it looks good. It's just not on the right side. So once the heart shaker panel was on my card, on the wrong side, I took the die cut that was part of the pack, the ephemera die cut, and since it was going to be elevated off of the printed cardstock, I needed to help support it. So I cut some fun foam down to help protect it. I adhered all of that with score tape, stuck the fun foam on the back side of the die cut, making sure that I didn't cover the entire die cut because I wanted some of that die cut to overhang the cardstock heart shaker portion. And then using some Ranger multi-matte medium, I glued some of the Hearts of Plenty hearts down, both on the cardstock section and on the pattern paper section to help bring everything together. And that was that. It was a super fun card. It had its own challenges, as a lot of things do, but you learn from it and you move on. And I really like this card. I love that each heart has its own shaker bit. For this card, I knew I wanted to feature the chocolate bar stamp that is included in the card set. So I pulled out my stamping platform by Tim Holtz and I layered the first base layer of the chocolate down and covered it with Rocky Shore by Altenew. I needed to stamp this a couple of times to make sure that I got good coverage. Then for the second step, I switched to Distress inks. I used Distressed Ink Walnut Stain, and then Distress Ink Ground Espresso for the shadow of the chocolate. I wanted a silver foil, so I went with the Lawn Fawn Manatee for the base color of the wrapper, the Delicata Silver Shimmer, and the Hero Arts Silver Embossing Powder. And then I simply just fussy cut it out. Because it's basically a rectangle, it's really easy just to fussy cut it. And then there's a few little bite marks along the edge where you can just eyeball it. It was a relatively easy thing to fussy cut, and I do not like fussy cutting. All right, I'm going to play a little bit of music here just while I finish stamping up this image, and I'll be right back in about a minute or so. that my chocolate bar is all stamped and cut out, I could move on to the rest of the card. I chose my pattern paper that was supplied to me in the card kit, and then using some of the cardstock that was included, and then using the wavy, wacky die cut hearts, I used the smallest one and the medium one to cut out 3 different hearts that sort of matched with the paper. I took the vellum that was included and stamped my sentiment on it using Memento Tuxedo Black. This was not completely dry as I was finishing the process of my card, so I had to be very, very careful not to rub it against anything. I do not have a very good way of adhering vellum on the front side without it being seen. So I know that there are a couple of applications out there that work for this. I, however, do not own any. So I wrapped my vellum around the back side and adhered it to the back side. Once everything was in place, I glued that to my card base and I called it done. I like the simplicity of the card. I really like that it allows the sentiment and the chocolate bar to stand out. Of all the cards that I created with this kit, this card is probably one of my favorites. It might be because I super love the stripes. It also might be because I have attempted this look multiple times and failed repeatedly, and this is the first time it actually worked. I tried an inlaid stripe look. This is a look that I had seen from that Jennifer McGuire had done some time ago. And I started off by taking some of the cardstock that was included in the kit and cutting it at a diagonal. At the time, cutting it at a diagonal seemed to make sense. I think I was thinking because I was going to apply it on a diagonal. At the end of the day, it was a huge waste of paper, I think. If I had just cut it in normal rectangular strips, I could have just trimmed off what I didn't need and reused it, and my life would have been a lot easier. So try not to make the same mistake I did. What I started with was a sheet of score tape, a 6x6 sheet of score tape that I taped down to an 80-pound card weight cardstock. So I cut it down to an A2 sized card, so it would be 5.5 by 4.25 inches. Then I carefully just lined up all of the strips of paper to the score tape. Because I used paper on a diagonal cut and sometimes it didn't go all the way to the edge of the paper, I wasn't able to have a panel that was an A2 sized panel. This forced me to look at the dies that I had in stock. And since I super love the stitched postage stamp edge rectangle dies by Kat Scrappiness, I decided to use those. Now here's the deal. I was cutting through the heavy cardstock that was provided in the kit. I was cutting through the 80-pound cardstock that I had adhered the score tape to, and I was cutting through the score tape. That was a lot of thickness to run through my die cutting machine. So I ran it through multiple times. I even stuck some cardstock shims underneath there to add some bulk to try to cut through everything. Most of the rectangle cut out fine. It was mostly in the curves, the divots inside of the rectangle that didn't want to quite cut. So some of those I did have to fussy cut slightly. It wasn't that big of a deal, just sitting in front of the television. It didn't take all that much time, but it was a little extra step. Then I took this sweet die that came with the kit, and I used 2 of my favorite colors of the cardstock that came with the kit, and I die cut it out and layered them one on top of the other to create sort of a shadow effect. And I adhered these onto the vellum that came in the kit. And again, I wrapped this around the back side of the postage stamp like I did the card earlier. But this was after I used some Ranger Multi Matte Medium behind the sentiment to try to adhere that down. And then because I was going to use the wooden hearts, I stuck a wooden heart in a sticky spot that didn't want to stick down, and I used a little glue underneath that. Like I said, I think this is absolutely my favorite card. I don't know. There's another shaker card that I made. This is one of my favorite cards. If you try to do the inlaid cardstock idea, I highly suggest just cut rectangular strips. Do not cut your paper at a diagonal. It is a colossal waste of paper. So the next card that I'm going to show you could not be easier to put together if I tried. You could absolutely just open the box and make this card super simple quick. I took one of the pieces of pattern paper that I liked out of the kit and I cut it down to an A2 sized card. And then I chose two of the die cuts in there, the ephemera that was in the kit. The front one, the one that says, "I think about you a lot," I popped up off of the card base using some fun foam and some score tape. And because I had that space in between there and I knew I wanted to do something extra with the doily, I Googled accordion folding of doilies. It's a thing. You can Google that. And I played around with some play doilies that I had in my stash until I came up with something that looked semi-decent. I still think I could practice a little bit with it. But this allowed me to have not a flat doily on my project. And I stuck that underneath my three-dimensional piece and then adhered the other bit of ephemera that I had. And then using those enamel drops that came with the kit, I just added a few little drops here and there. And voila, literally this card took me almost no time at all. And it is so super duper charming. I really enjoy this one. I would like to take a moment to thank you very much for watching this video. I encourage you to grab the kit at Kat Scrappiness. There are a few left in stock. And here are the cards that I made with the kit.